All right, we are recording. Hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of Carpo's Thoughts. I guess I'm going to dive right into it here. I feel good today. It's New Year's Day, 2017. I feel reborn, in essence. And that's partly due to my mental outlook on the New Year's, making it what I want it to be. Now, I don't have any particular New Year's resolutions that I set forward for myself, except for to be more present in some aspects, but at the same time, trying to be perhaps a little more motivated and less procrastinated. The way I procrastinate on things that I possibly could do by a simple phone call, but don't want to deal with, things like that. Now, I don't look at it as a huge headache, although I know that the end result, if I get things done that I need to get done, obviously I'll feel better. But it becomes overwhelming sometimes in life, but I don't let it get to me because I'm always looking at the bigger picture. So, it's funny, while everybody's dancing last night at the concert, here I am standing in the back, tripping, with my eyes closed, looking at fractal art in my mind, and thinking about the connections between people, and how psychedelics act as a lubricant, a social lubricant between people, such as the same way that alcohol works. The difference being that you don't go home forgetting who you talked to. In fact, the experience can be imprinted in your mind for the rest of your life. For example, if you go to a concert and take LSD, the experience can be imprinted to the extent where you will hear a certain song and never forget that moment of dancing to that song. And this is the reality that I've been working off of lately, is trying to understand people better and understand myself better. And when I'm furthest away from reality, when I'm most detached from who I am as my ego self, which people would call ego loss, and I can do that with a psychedelic and then push that over the top with a little bit of nitrous oxide, and it really takes me to a certain place. If I go too far, then everything goes to chaos. But if I get to a certain level, I sit there and I see these patterns in my mind, and it's a whole bunch, all my senses combined into one. And I step back from it when I come out with it and think, I'm ever grateful to have a consciousness to come back into. And I'll tell myself, I'm not going to do that again. Whoa, that was too intense. Or during the experience, I'm saying, why did I take acid? I'm way too high, and there's always this idea that maybe I'll never come down from this. And everybody who's taken it's had at least one of those events, if they've taken it enough times. But knowing better and having tripped hundreds of times, it doesn't faze me much to just say, roll with it and, learn from the experience. And I guess what I'm saying with the psychedelics is I don't take them for the initial experience. I take them for 4 hours later when I'm finally having conversations with people. But even more, after 8 hours and I go to sleep for a few hours and wake up, the entire next day I'm glowing, and that's how I am today. I'm just still in that glowing mode and feeling very, very enlightened and understanding about the world around me. And it's something that I carry with me all the time, this awareness, but trying to utilize it in daily life is difficult. And that's at the root of this video subject, and what I really wanted to get into was that, for example, using alcohol is an example that more people understand. A person can have a couple drinks and go out and mingle with people. For me, I don't drink very often. So when I do, it works well. Let's just say if I go out and have a couple beers at the bar and take a little kratom, maybe I go out and dance and feel great. If I drink a little more, then I lose more inhibition and I can be annoying, over talkative or maybe belligerent with friends, at least when I was younger. And that's part of the reason why I don't drink very much, because I don't like losing who I am. I don't mind acting like an idiot. as long as I'm not doing it and harming anyone. And that's the thing, psychedelics can kind of take you out of your mind, but they don't make you feel spiteful or harmful, and you won't tease people and poke and prod. Not too much. I mean, when you're hanging out with a group of friends, well, it's a different story, but, we used to pick on our friends as youth, but that was just all in fun, and you mean well with it. But alcohol can truly make... I used to say that there's something in cheap tequila, and I'd say it's an ingredient called make-you-mean, and because it makes you mean. And it was this, something I'm still remembering today because, certain types of people and certain liquors, certain alcohol, alcohol can give you that social lubricant, but it takes away your, it makes you more likely to get yourself into trouble and put yourself in danger, let's just say. So alcohol is a very dangerous drug. But then we have psychedelics, which allow you to see other people in the same light as you would like to be seen, as just another person. In other words, it opens up areas of our brain that normally are blocked, not because we're not in touch with it enough, not because we're not there yet or we haven't meditated enough, but because we need those closed. Those doors must remain closed for daily operation. In order to go out in the world and function, to get by in this world game, you have to be able to shut out some of those negativities, which is the reason why we forget about negative things in our past quite often, and we're good at blocking out things in our lives that that we don't want to focus on. When a person drinks alcohol, it can make those problems just fade away. Psychedelics can actually magnify them by putting your mind on a type of feedback loop where you think about it and it compounds and compounds, and that's how people get, say, paranoid. They worry that they're being watched or something on a particular substance, and their brain gets into these loops. But the advantage to this is being able to use those feedback loops to your advantage, meaning that you're using positive reinforcement to teach yourself a little bit about yourself, I guess. I just made this delicious mocha. It's like white chocolate espresso latte, I guess. I guess it's a mocha. Damn, it's good. I'm going to make sure the camera's still rolling here. Rolling. Yep. Because you never know. There have been times where I've talked for 15, 20 minutes and there's no light on it and the screen's not working. And time for a new camera, dude. But I'd just like to say that what I wanted to get at was that we try to carry... In other words, we have an experience where we're really connected with people in the world, and we say, how can we carry that into our daily life? How can we take that home with us and really share with the world? Because when you're back in the real world, in reality, most people don't care, or it seems like they don't care. We shut each other out, and we build up our walls, and we're into what we're into, and all groups may come together for one event, and then when they go their own separate ways, they won't even look at each other, that type of thing. But there are things that bring people together. Music is one of them. I love good music. The band we saw last night was like Jerry Garcia birthday band, and they do Dead stuff, Grateful Dead, songs, and did a really great job. But in 2 weeks, I'm going to see Excision play at the Roseland downtown, and I love Excision because I just love crunching bass. And even like I was telling my son the other day, because he's going too. I was saying I don't really like it all. In fact, I have to wade through 80% of it to find the 20% I do like. But I really like what I do like. And for me, music has no boundaries. I wouldn't limit myself. If I like Britney Spears, I'd go to a Britney Spears concert. If it hit home and I liked it, that kind of stuff. I don't put myself in categories, because categories are what get us into trouble. But, after Excision, we actually have another show coming up, and I think it's February. It's the Dark Star Orchestra, which is another Grateful Dead cover band, and they're doing 2 nights in Portland, and we got tickets for both nights. And then we decided that we're going to swap out and sell the one night of tickets and get Lotus tickets, because Lotus is playing the same night as Dark Star. So we'll go to Dark Star, then Lotus. And I think that would be awesome, because I really like them too. And, of course, a lot of you have probably heard of them, and a lot of you probably haven't. Um, the music world, the collective between techno or electronic music and rock and roll, you know, they were just clashing through time. For example, I think of 9 Inch Nails off the top of my head, you know. They had their own sound, their own impact, and they used kind of a combo of electronic music. And then they had, like, rappers in the 80s and 90s, like, playing with heavy metal bands, you know, and you know, the old Run DMC mix with Aerosmith, Walk This Way. Things like that were, we try to bring different styles together, but today it truly works. It's a true meld of electronic music and jam bands, and it's what the Grateful Dead, which is the greatest band of all time. The Grateful Dead is beyond a doubt the greatest band ever. I mean, how many bands, none, can play, say they played for 50 years, and even though Jerry died in the 90s, they'd still played for 25 years. I mean, it's been a long time coming, and they play damn good music, and they do it because they love it, you know. And regardless of the politics or what people think about the band, you know, or particular members, you remember they're just people too. They've spent their whole lives playing music for others, and they're going to have their own little expeditions in their lives, and whatever that may be, the sound, the music brings people together. And when the Grateful Dead broke, you know, they ended, people moved to other bands, Fish, Widespread Panic, String Cheese Incident, and a variety of festivals that popped up onto the scene. And the thing is, a lot of these are commercialized and kind of sold out crap, but they opened up a door for people, an avenue. Let's just say they fit, you know, a need that people wanted places to come together. You know, getting together at a festival and taking psychedelics or not taking psychedelics isn't really relevant, or whether you're drinking or not drinking. There are sober people, drinking people, people taking psychedelics, whatever it may be. The drugs aren't the reason. The drugs just help some people to break down those temporary barriers that we put up all the time. Because you can't just all of a sudden go to an event and just turn off all your inhibitions and just be happy and dance around. I mean, some people can, but it's more fun when you can meld better, smile, and laugh with people. I have a little bit of social anxiety. It's something that I'd like to work on. I'd like to bring that feeling I get on psychedelics, where I'm like really talkative and communicative, yet functional, unlike with alcohol, where I might forget or be an idiot or stumble. Feel totally functional and you know, be able to share those experiences with people and really want to know people, get to know people. It's something that I think we all need more of, but we still have to remain kind of distant at the same time, you know. It's tough. It's tough to remain distant when you want to be close to people, but finding it hard to even be close to those you love, those in your direct family, where we're just so overwhelmed or burdened. Let's just say, you know, your husband or wife comes up to hug you, but you're right in the middle of doing something like an important email, and you kind of like, you know, blow it off. They're in a different state of mind than you, and coming together and seeing that and realizing, breaking away from something to just go right into another mode is really hard. And that's what I want to work on, part of, you know, because psychedelics allow me to do that to an extent, but with all the talk that I've mentioned, of course, I'm going to make a couple of videos talking about it because of my experience last night. It was quite intense, and I had a great time. I wouldn't say it was that intense, but you know, I've had much more intense. But when I'm out in public, it's a different story, because I kind of like my privacy, to hang out at home and talk with a few close friends, put on some records, you know, break out the lasers and the nitrous and all that fun stuff. So I just wanted to say, while I'm laying there in that state of mind, out of my mind, I realized the reason I do it. It's not to get high and escape. It's because when I'm that far gone, I have to be almost to the point of like losing my mind to realize how important it is to have a mind, and how important this life is, but how little importance it really has unless you give it importance. I stopped playing simpleton games a long time ago, And there are a lot of people out there who play the simple-minded game. Just make sure the camera's going. People who play the victim role, or people who play, poor me attitude. Always something wrong, and everybody needs to console them. And if there's any lesson I've learned in life, it's that you have to be able to console yourself and hug yourself. And that first means liking yourself. So if we don't like ourselves, then nobody else is going to like us either. They're going to pick up on that, They're going to realize that we're weak. In other words, that, I hate to say it, but animals, especially certain animals, when they sense one is weak in their pack, they just devour it. And, up until that point, everything's fine and dandy. But the minute that one's hurt, they just eat it because they know, the weaklings get eaten. And in our society, we've nurtured weaknesses. And it's caused, a huge explosion in population over the last couple hundred years. And I can't remember the specifics. It's doubled in at least, I believe, a century. It's mind-blowing how fast things have evolved. Until you see it on a chart, population growth, you just can't really comprehend or grasp it. It's intense. Millions of years of evolution, and then boom. A few million to a few billion, and then 7 billion. When I was a kid, it was like 4 billion or something, and now it's like, what? We've almost doubled? It's just absolutely mind-blowing. And with this, it's more than ever now that we need closer communication and understanding between one another. And this is why people like Timothy Leary went out in the world screaming, everybody needs to take acid, everybody needs to take acid. And back then, I can't blame him. It was new, it was relatively fresh out there, and the people were really convinced it would help stop us from going to war and causing problems. But if only they knew the extent to which the problems really went, and the depth to which they run. But when LSD brings down those barriers. It allows, basically, you can picture a map of the world in your mind, and all the borders crumble. All the leaders' suits fall away. You realize that everyone is just flesh on this planet. Just a variety of consciousnesses trying to do our best and following certain set patterns that have been set for us, trying to break away from those patterns. But you can't start over. You can't start over fresh without being programmed, because programming is part of who you are, unless you just want to be a wild animal. And I think we owe ourselves a little more than that. I'm a wild animal at heart, I guess, and we all are. So I guess I should mention that part of the realizations that I've had in my explorations into hyperspace, mental space, the mindscapes, I found that you have to embrace the darkness. In other words, let's say you're sitting there picturing all these fractals in your mind and a demon comes to mind. You try to fight it and think it's something bad. If you already have preconceived notions about Satan trying to enter, demons take you over, you will set yourself up to have the nocebo effect, which is believing something's harming you when it's really not. And you could do actual damage to yourself by using your psyche and thinking you're being harmed or hurt. And I believe this may be attributed to some people's mental illnesses or long-term damage, fear of being overtaken by something. You have to embrace your darkness. Become Satan, okay? I hate to say it that way because I really could give a shit less. I'm not religious, but I try not to offend Christians because I know that I have Christian subscribers, and I try to be fair and understand that they have their own beliefs, and that's, what they believe. But Satan has been kind of a scapegoat for everything, anything that goes wrong in man's psyche, it's Satan, Satan, Satan. To me, embracing darkness means realizing that the darkness is inherent within all of us, that if it's in me, it's in you, that it's part of all of us, and we share that darkness. But it's all what you picture it. If you picture darkness as being sodomy and sex or rape or murder, then that's what you're picturing. When I say the word darkness, whatever came to your mind was what came to your mind. To me, darkness just means ultimately devoid of emotion, death, mental or physical. Or ego. Ego death is a thing all its own. I think it's kind of an overused term. I've had several of them, and each one I grow a little bit from. But it's like this thing I read earlier about what's your end game with psychedelics, and it was a little thread about that. And the guy was saying, some people want to explore and understand themselves, and some want to understand others. Some want to just have a good time, and it's really up to you. How do you use the tools? But for me, the thing I try to take away from my 2 or 3 trips a year I usually take are to bring back a feeling of connection with others, share that with people, and try to glow as long as I can and feel good about it, and realize that there's a bigger picture going on than just my life. And the more we get wrapped up in what we think our life and how important we think we are, the more we're going to suffer. Because suffering is attachment. And attachment can be not just to material objects, but to an outcome. And if you're attached to the outcome of your life, then you're missing living it. Too many people have died without ever living. So I wish you all luck on this new year, and I hope all of you have a wonderful day and have your own phenomenal plans. And if you don't set anything in stone, don't worry about it. Everybody's got their own thing. You don't have to make a resolution. You don't have to always try to be a greater person. Fuck, you can skip a year if you want. Take a break from being a better person, or take a break from knowledge and go travel and be a buffoon for a while if you want. Whatever you want to do, that's what life's for. It's experiences. So, peace. Namaste. I'll talk to y'all soon.